Good morning, students. I'm Shaila Goel, your psychology teacher. We are doing chapter number 2, Self and Personality. Today, through this video, we are going to understand about the personality assessment. My dear students, in the past or in the present also, we have the experience that people assess our personality by observing us and they make the judgments, and these judgments can be biased. So these are not the true personality assessments. To make personality assessments, we need some objective tools that are standardized also. And those tools we have to understand in this part, that is assessment of personality. It is a formal effort aimed to understand personality of an individual in terms of the personality assessment. It is formal tool, so people can rely on it. We can believe on the results, but the informal judgments reduce objectivity. So there is a need of formal assessment. Assessment refers to the procedures used to evaluate or differentiate people on the basis of certain characteristics. The goal of assessment is to understand and predict behavior with minimum error and maximum accuracy. Now, students, how all these things assessments will help? First of all, it will help us to predict the behavior, right? Next, we will understand the differences between the people and how they behave differently in a given situation, right? There will be an understanding about the diagnosis, about the training, placements, counseling, and other purposes. For this method, there are four types. Okay, there are different varieties through which we can understand the personality, but there are majorly four types of assessments techniques: psychometric test, self report measures, projective techniques, and behavioral analysis. Now, students, we have already done psychometric tests in our chapter number 1. Now we are coming to the self report measures. Now, self report inventory is a type of psychological test in which a person fills out a survey or questionnaire with or without the help of the investigator. Now, it is known as self report because the person is answering about herself or himself. It is a structured measure. Personality inventories that are self report inventories include questions dealing with situations, symptoms, and feelings. Test takers are asked to indicate how they feel about each item, and they have to describe themselves and how much they agree with each other. Now, it is a kind of a scale sometimes where you say, I agree, I strongly agree, I disagree, I strongly disagree. It can be like that also, it can be true false also. So every inventory is different and they have to reveal something about themselves. That is why they are known as self report. Inventories are different from tests in that there is no objectively correct answer. Responses are based on opinions and subjective perceptions. Now, students, in the projective test, we have correct answer or the wrong answer, but the personality test or the self report measures are according to the person's own perceptions, right? My perception may be different from yours, so we have to assess the personality and we can't say that this answer is right or wrong. Okay, so this is the main difference between the questionnaires, the projective test, psychometric test, and the self report measures. It was Alport who suggested that the best method to assess a person is asking her or him about himself. This led to the use of self report measures. They are structured, they require verbal responses, right? On some kind of a rating scale, I have explained to you, right? The methods require the subject to objectively report his own feelings, right? The responses are accepted at their face value. They are scored in quantitative terms and interpreted on the basis of norms developed for the test. Now, students, you have to understand that the results, whether it is a rating scale or yes, no, it is changed into quantity. They are not assessed qualitatively, they are assessed quantitatively. इसको हम नंबरों से करते हैं, नंबर्स में हम इसको आंसर्स को चेंज कर लेते हैं और नंबर्स के अकॉर्डिंगली हम इसकी असेसमेंट करते हैं, राइट. इट इज़ अ quantitative assessment. Now, first test we are talking about is MMPI. The full form of MMPI is Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. Now, it is very widely used personality assessment. Who are the developers? Yes, Hathaway and McKinley, and they diagnosed it for the psychiatric diagnosis. Okay, they wanted to help to identify the people with the psychiatric problems, so they have developed this MMPI. Now, the problem in this test is that it is very effective in identifying the varieties of psychopathology. Now, we have two versions, MMPI 1 and MMPI 2. MMPI 2, the answers are in true or false, and the third option is when you are not sure, cannot say, right. They are used to assess mild to serious disorders like schizophrenia, depression, etc. They are they are used to assess the abnormalities, right. We have to understand what are the abnormal patterns of behavior in the personality. Now, it has 10 clinical scales and 8 validity scales. It is the most widely used personality assessment. Now, for giving you a clear view, let us see a small example of MMPI questions. I like mechanics magazines. The answer will be yes or no. I don't like it, I will say no. You may like it, then you can say yes. I have a good appetite. Yes. So these kind of questions are there where we have to reveal about our own likings and dislikings and about our own self, right. Through these types of questions we assess the personality. Now, what are the clinical skills that we are talking about? See, psychopathology can be in the 10 areas that are hypochondria, depression, hysteria, psychopathetic deviance, masculinity, femininity, paranoia, schizophrenia, hypomania, and social introversion. Now, it has the revision available in MMPI 2, I have already told you. It has 567 statements in total. The subject has to only write true or false, yes or no, right. And there are 10 subtests which we have already talked about. Now, students, that you have to remember is that Hathaway and McKinley were the original developers of this test, but in India, Malik and Joshi has developed Jodhpur Multiphasic Personality Inventory along the lines of MMPI, right. Why do they make an Indian version? Because of the cultural bias options in the scales, so they have to make a revision. So Malik and Joshi has made it in the Indian culture. Next is ISNEC Personality Questionnaire, and we also write it as IPQ. EPQ. EPQ was developed by ISNEC. This test initially assessed only two dimensions of personality, that is introverted and extroverted, and emotionally stable and emotionally unstable. These dimensions are characterized by 32 personality traits that we have already talked about in our theory. Later on, ISNEC added third dimension called psychoticism. It is linked to psychopathology that represents a lack of feeling for others, a tough manner of interacting with people, a tendency to defy social conventions. A person scoring high on this dimension tends to be hostile, egocentric, and antisocial. This test is also widely used. Students, through this test, we also have fourth dimension, that is lie score, right? And if a person is telling too much lies, it is reflected in the lie score, and we have to do the test again if the lie score is very high. So it is a very good test where we can assess the personality very easily. Now the self-report measure suffers from majorly two problems, that is social desirability and acquisitions. Now what is the social desirability? It is a tendency of a person to respond in a particular social desirable manner. If somebody asks you, do you respect teachers? You will say yes if you think that others are going to see, because it is socially desirable. And if your teacher has read this answer that you don't respect teachers, it may reflect badly on your case. So what you will do, if you are consciously trying to appease the teacher, you will write down the social desirable answer, that is, I respect the teacher, and you may not respect the teachers. So this is social desirability factor. Next is acquiescence. It is a tendency of an individual to agree with the items or questions irrespective of its content. It is often appears to be in the form of saying yes to the items. These tendencies render the assessment of personality less reliable. Now, example of acquiescence is OMR sheet. When you have to fill up OMR sheet and you don't have much of a time, you make a pattern. First 5 all A, then B, then C, then D. This kind of answering, whether you make some patterns or you say yes to all the answers, or you mark answer number 2 for all, that maybe 10 or 15 will be correct. We think like that. In the OMR sheets, we don't see the question paper and we mark it. This is known as acquisitions. We are not concerned about the question content, we are only answering in one of the manners that we have decided. So these are the two main problems in all the self-report measures. Now coming to the 16PF, or the 16 personality factor questionnaire, let us understand more about this. Firstly, it was developed by Raymond Cattell, right? On the basis of his studies, he identified a large number of personality descriptions which were subjected to factor analysis to identify the basic personality structure. Now, students, factor analysis is only used in the behavioral sciences like geography, psychology, etc. Now, factor analysis was used by two people. First was Charles Spearman, and the other one is Cattell. Now, they used the statistical technique to understand the factors, right? Now, 16PF is a comprehensive measure of normal range of personality found to be effective in variety of settings where an in-depth assessment of the whole person is needed. The 16PF traits are the result of years of factor analysis research focused on discovering the basic structural elements of personality. In addition to discovering the 16 normal range personality traits for which the instrument is named, these researchers identify the 5 broad dimensions, a variant of big 5 factors. Now they have found the 5 factors. Now what are the 16 personality factors according to them? They are warmth, reasoning, emotional stability, dominance, liveliness, rule, consciousness, social boldness, sensibility, vigilance, many more, right? Now what are the uses? Because of the strong scientific background, the 16PF questionnaire is used in wide range of settings, including industrial, counseling, and clinical, basic research, educational, and medical settings. The instrument's ability to provide comprehensive and objective information in an efficient manner makes it a particularly powerful tool for all these things, right? with the help of 16 pf we can understand the personality in a very in-depth manner, right? And because of this in-depth criteria we are able to assess them for the job purposes, for educational purposes, career counseling, vocational training, etc., right? Although the 16 pf questionnaire is a measure of normal range personality, it can be used for counseling and clinical settings to provide in-depth and integrated picture of the whole person. Now, if we have to understand the whole person, we can use this test effectively. Now, this test has a declarative statements. Now, you will ask me, ma'am, what kind of a statements? Declarative statements are the statements that we declare about our own selves. I like to go to the market, I like to stay at home, I like to mingle with my friends. Now, out of these three, whichever is the most appropriate for me, I have to tick on that, right? So, this is kind of a declarative statement which I declare for myself. The psychologist Cattle has given us 3 to 4 options in every question, and the most appropriate one has to be ticked, and the subject responds to the specific situation by choosing from a set of given state alternatives. The test can be used with high school students as well as for the adults, and it can be used for the guidance, vocational exploration, and occupational settings. Now, students, apart from these techniques, there have been lots of other things where we can focus on other dimensions. But for you, these three are the most important to study the personality. Now, students, after understanding the problems, that is social desirability and acquiescence, you have to note that everything has to be used with caution. You can't understand the personality by doing it very superficially. You have to be more vigilant. You have to understand the personality through various other measures also. You have to have optimum level of understanding to interpret the personality, right? And no one without the knowledge can do this. So you have to be very cautious in evaluating the personality, as it can influence a person very badly, okay, and very nicely also. So we have to use it cautiously, we have to interpret it cautiously. On this note, I will take a leave. I hope you have understood well. Thank you, students.